I will kill 3,000 to break, and I will cross the line and execute the crime. I mourn the cold of all things, the beginning of killing. I rejoice in the heavens and return to one again. After obtaining the mysterious pearl, an ordinary young man's life trajectory undergoes a huge change. He cultivates his vitality and takes risks step by step, using martial arts to connect with the gods, using strength to break through the sky, practicing against the heavens, and striving to become the supreme god king. Keywords of the novel. Wuzhen Shenwang Wupopup, Wuzhen Shenwang TXT Complete Collection Download, Wuzhen Shenwang Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Wuzhen Youth. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The mountains and waters are clear and beautiful, an endless range of mountains, like a giant dragon crawling in the human world, with a long and lasting impact. Therefore, this mountain range is called the Qinglong Mountains. Between the remnants of this mountain range, there is a remote small town called Wuzhen, located in the extreme, surrounded by mountains and water. From a distance, it can be seen with smoke from cooking, covering over 1,000 households, which can be considered prosperous. It really hurts. A murmur came from the village of Wuzhen, and the speaker was a 15 or 16-year-old boy, dressed in a green shirt and with a delicate face. However, there was a hint of pain on his small face, and he covered his chest with his palm. Obviously, he was injured and limped forward. Before arriving at a simple room, Meng Fan stood still, looking at this usually warm and loving home with a hesitant expression. He immediately cleaned his clothes vigorously, afraid that any clues might be revealed. Damn Lei Tao, wait for me. Meng Fan will definitely beat you into a pig's head someday. With a grudge, Meng Fan's small face couldn't help but feel a bit gloomy as he thought about what had just happened. On the way home after completing his cultivation, Meng Fan met his lifelong rival Lei Tao. After only a few days of absence, his opponent's strength had once again improved to the 5th level of body cultivation, and he claimed his strength was high. He had an argument with several young men from Wuzhen behind him, mocking Meng Fan. Meng Fan was only a 15-year-old child, and in a moment of anger, he started fighting with Lei Tao and others. Meng Fan's strength was only at the 2nd level of physical training, so how could he be a match for Lei Tao, who was already at his 3rd level? He slapped Meng Fan on the chest, leaving him bruised. However, although it can be said that Meng Fan knows that there is a considerable gap between him and Lei Tao. Because the cultivation between both sides is a symbol of strength and vitality on this continent. Yuanqi, the fundamental power between heaven and earth, exists in the world and is immortal for eternity. It is absorbed into the body by practitioners and divided into 8 days according to the realm, with 10 levels per day. Among the 8 days, there is a difference between the lower 3 days and the upper 5 days. These next 3 days will be the 3 major realms of body refining, qi refining, and soul refining. However, although these 3 realms are only the foundation of cultivating vitality, ordinary people should not spend their entire lives trying to break through one realm, let alone break through the powerful realm from the next 3 days to the top 5 days. At the age of 15, Meng Bai reached the 2nd stage of physical cultivation, which was the most basic stage, using elemental energy to warm and nourish the body in meridians. Tidying up, Meng Fan walked lightly into the simple and tidy room. There were no valuable items in the room, but it was extremely neat and tidy, with a warm feeling of home. Just as Meng Fan wanted to infiltrate his room, a faint voice came from behind. "Stop, what did you do?" The speaker was a middle-aged woman with long hair draped over her shoulders and a gentle face with traces of time, but it was evident that she must have been a beauty in her youth. She was Meng Fan's mother, Xin'er. Turning around, Meng Fan smiled awkwardly at his mother and whispered, "Mother, I just returned from my cultivation." Xin'er glared at Meng Fan and said sternly, "Going out to practice has left a lot of dirt behind, and there are still injuries." Suddenly, Meng Fan's small face changed, knowing that he had been discovered and standing honestly in the same place. Although Meng Fan's mother Xin'er did not understand any cultivation of vitality and her body was weak, in the heart of a 15-year-old child, her parents clearly had a natural sense of authority. Pulling Meng Fan to his body, he untied his green shirt and immediately changed Xin'er's pretty face. He gritted his teeth tightly and immediately took out the healing medicine from home to apply it to Meng Fan's body, while scolding him. "I've told you many times already, don't fight with others, why don't you listen?" Upon hearing this, Meng Fan pouted his mouth and defended himself, "I don't agree. Lei Tao and his team are so despicable. They not only insulted me, but also called me a child without a father." As the voice fell, Xin'er's body stiffened instantly, and a hint of darkness appeared on her face. Her palm gently smeared the wound on Meng Fan's body and gritted her teeth, saying, "I told you, don't worry about what others say. You just need to cultivate your vitality, you know." Seeing his mother's expression not good, Meng Fan immediately realized that he had said the wrong thing, stuck out his tongue, and stopped talking. "Apply Meng Fan's wound completely," and Xin'er stood up and said softly. "Don't move around these days, I'll do a he-shou treatment for you later." He-shou is the most common spiritual medicine between heaven and earth. Meng Fan knew that in the realm of heaven and earth, all the spiritual medicines were divided into 9 levels, and the power of each pill doubled. However, a first-grade spiritual medicine is not uncommon, but it is also extremely precious for the heart orchid family, who only have one who does not understand any cultivation of vitality. Any spiritual medicine from heaven and earth can unblock the meridians of the cultivator and accelerate their cultivation of vitality. However, the reason why Meng Fan falls behind others is not because he is not diligent enough, on the contrary, his cultivation time is almost twice that of others. The real difference lies in the spiritual medicine. The ancestors of Lei Tao and others were all stewards in Wuzhen, and although they didn't have anything precious, there were still spiritual medicines below the 2nd grade. That's why Lei Tao was able to quickly reach the 5th level of body refining. The only way for Meng Fan's family to obtain the elixir was through the monthly distribution of 2 plants by Wuzhen. However, at most, there were 2 plants per month, and sometimes the harvest of Wuzhen's guards was not good, or even none. Therefore, Meng Fan's spiritual cultivation was always weaker than that of his peers in Wuzhen. Upon hearing Xin'er's words, Meng Fan frowned and hesitated as he asked, "Mother, how much is the head of the family?" "Your illness." "My illness is nothing, I'll use it for you first. You need to practice." Xin'er smiled gently, but at the moment when her voice fell, she unconsciously coughed, covering the corner of her mouth with her hand, trembling and coughing incessantly. Chapter 2. Once the decision is made, do it. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Suddenly, Meng Fan's small face changed. He knew that his mother had been suffering from a cold illness in her body for many years, and there was a cold energy that remained in her body. He immediately came to Xin'er's side and helped her. Cough. When Xin'er's palm was released, she found that there was already a patch of blood red in her hand, it was blood. In an instant, Meng Fan stared at the blood with a feeling of being struck by 5 thunderbolts. He gritted his teeth and looked at Xin'er, surprised that his mother's cold illness had become so severe. "Mother, I'll go find him to make soup for you." Meng Fan helped Xin'er sit down, but quickly searched in the room. The only medicine that can alleviate the coldness of the heart orchid is a decoction made of spiritual medicine, which not only unblocks the meridians in the practitioner's body, but also is enough to suppress cold energy. However, after a moment, Meng Fan only found the last he-shou plant from his home and looked at Xin'er with some surprise. Unexpectedly, there was only the last plant of he-shou left, but his mother was willing to use it to make soup for him. She endured the torment of cold illness and couldn't help but make Meng Fan's eyes turn red and speechless. Seeing Meng Fan's appearance, Xin'er smiled and touched his head, saying softly, "Don't worry, Mom's okay. Why don't you take this head to make soup? You still need to practice." You're the pillar of the family, Mom can still endure it. Upon hearing this, Meng Fan gritted his teeth and didn't speak. Instead, he gently helped Xin'er into the room. However, as Meng Fan turned around, a hint of sharpness flashed in his eyes, passing scenes in an instant. The former Meng Fan family was not like this, nor was they in this Wuzhen, but rather a distant place tens of thousands of miles away from the Qinlong Mountains, Tianhan Mountain, Tianhan sect. There is a supermassive sect there, and it is rumored that the strong ones there are enough to slay the heavens and earth, move the sky, turn the earth with their flesh palms, and topple the mountains with their sword fingers. And Meng Fan's father used to be a member of the inner sect of the Tianhan sect. At that time, Meng Fan was only 5 years old and lived an extremely good life in the Tianhan sect. Meng Fan's father, Meng Tsang, was the strongest member of the Meng family, an affiliated family of the Tianhan sect. With his own strength, he greatly promoted the entire Meng family and entered the inner gates of the Tianhan sect. With Meng Tsang's strength, the entire Meng family also surpassed several times before and became an important ally of the Tianhan sect, a huge entity. But one day, something changed Meng Fan's life. When Meng Tsang was carrying out a sect mission, he made a big mistake due to a momentary mistake, which not only caused the mission to fail, but also resulted in the death of all the personnel involved in that mission, including the leader Meng Tsang. The losses from that mission were extremely huge, even the Heavenly Cold sect was furious. However, there was no other way to deal with the deceased Meng Tsang. He had to vent his anger on Xin'er and the only 5-year-old Meng Fan, completely driving them out of the Heavenly Cold sect. Xin'er, who was alone, took Meng Fan back to the Meng family, which belonged to Meng Tsang's family. However, to Xin'er's surprise, all the members of the Meng family who had once been extremely humble towards Meng Tsang's family had changed their expressions, and in order to cater to the Heavenly Cold sect, they had become extremely questioning. All things and resources belonging to Meng Tsang were forcibly taken back by the Meng family, and none were left for Meng Fan. Heart Orchid, feeling extremely sad, knelt down in front of the Meng family to plead for Meng Fan's future cultivation. However, what she received was a direct palm from the contemporary Meng family head, Meng Tsang's elder brother Meng Tiansheng, who directly drove him out of the Meng family. If they were to stay in the capital city where the Meng family is located, they would be directly killed. So, without any strength, Xin'er had to take Meng Fan and hide far away, all the way to this tens of thousands of miles away Wuzhen to live in seclusion. Meng Tiansheng, who had been practicing the cold attribute elemental energy technique for many years, hit an ordinary person with a palm. Although it did not kill Xin'er, it was enough to make her suffer from a hidden illness that had been filled with cold energy for many years. The pain at night was enough to make Xin'er restless and even want to commit suicide several times. However, for the sake of the small Meng Fan, he forcibly suppressed it. Tianhan sect, Meng family. Every time he thought of these two names, Meng Fan's small face couldn't help but twist, and a fierce expression flashed through his eyes. The night slowly shrouded the entire Wuzhen, with the crescent moon standing in the sky. Meng Fan lay quietly on the small bed, but couldn't sleep. Because Meng Fan knew that once Xin'er vomited blood, it meant that her injuries had flared up again, and only precious spiritual medicines were needed to suppress them. Otherwise, she would inevitably suffer from agony and even be in danger of her life. But a he shou plant is enough there. However, for the current Meng Fan family, it is not easy to ask for another spiritual medicine above the first grade. Meng Fan's eyebrows furrowed tightly, knowing that relying on the distribution of Wuzhen was definitely not enough. Even if it was his first-grade spiritual medicine, it still relied on the compassion of the town mayor, let alone being above the second grade. Looking out the window, Meng Fan's eyes suddenly flickered, and he thought of a possibility. The night was shrouded in mystery, and Meng Fan sat up involuntarily, exhaling heavily, as if he had made some decision, murmuring. "That's all I have to do. My father once said, if a man decides, he will do it. If he's wrong, it's good. Chapter 3. Entering the Mountains to Collect Medicines. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 4. Secondary Spiritual Medicine, 100 Herbs. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. After a few steps, Meng Fan arrived directly on the cliff. His small hand tightly grasped the stone, while his body cautiously moved towards the other side of the mountain peak. Squeak. Accidentally, Meng Fan's body collided with a stone, causing severe pain that made his small face twitch. The originally injured chest area suddenly overflowed with blood, but in the next moment, Meng Fan's palm tightly grasped the cliff, his fingers pressed against the stone head, and he continued to climb forward. Finally, at a distance of 3 meters from the back of the cliff, Meng Fan's figure stopped, his eyes fixed on the cliff, his legs moved, and he drank softly from the corner of his mouth. Spell it. As the voice fell, Meng Fan's figure had already jumped directly towards the cliff. A strong force spread between Meng Fan's calves, and in an instant, Meng Fan flashed through the sky, but accurately landed at the back of the cliff. Pop. Meng Fan fell onto the rock, and the pain spread directly. It was as if his bones were about to break, but with an excited smile, he knew he had made the right bet. His painstaking Yen Ta Wukong was indeed in vain. This Yen Ta has no trace, which is a fundamental Qi technique and the only one that Meng Fan is proficient in. According to Meng Fan's knowledge, the Yuan Qi technique is an existence that has been multiplying between heaven and earth for an unknown amount of time and can fully exert its power. It is generally divided into 3 levels according to the level of the Yuan Qi technique. Lower, middle, and upper. With each level passed, the power is almost doubled. And above it, there are also the 4 legendary levels of Honghuang Di Tian, but it is only heard how strong Meng Fan is. The Yen Ta Wu trace technique practiced by Meng Fan is the most basic and inferior skill, which all the young people in Wuzhen know. Yen Ta Wu trace is just a skill to increase speed, not even its power. However, with Meng Fan's practice making perfect, he still practiced well and was able to increase speed significantly. Reluctantly standing up, Meng Fan couldn't wait to look around under the moonlight. Behind this cliff was all Meng Fan's hope. At the next moment, Meng Fan's pupils shrank and he suddenly noticed a faint blue light emanating from a withered tree not far away. Upon closer inspection, a small grass grew there, with the leaves slightly parted and a tempting fragrance emanating from it. 100 Herbs. Second grade spiritual medicine, 100 Herbs. For a moment, Meng Fan's body trembled. Although he had never seen 100 herbs, he had seen the pharmacopoeia in Wuzhen on weekdays, and the things described above were exactly the same as the grass. This thing is much more powerful than the first-grade spiritual medicine he shows medicinal power. Suddenly, an excited smile appeared on Meng Fan's small face. Once these 100 herbs were taken back, they would definitely be of great help to Xin'er Land's injury. Although they could not be cured, they were enough to temporarily suppress the cold disease. Thinking of this, Meng Fan immediately excitedly walked towards the 100 medicinal herbs. Before he strode towards the 100 medicinal herbs, just as Meng Fan's body approached, his eyes suddenly turned to an inconspicuous black object next to the 100 medicinal herbs. Meng Fan raised his eyebrows and picked it up in confusion. He wiped away the soil on it and found that it was a black bead. This bead is as big as a palm, and it is filled with tiny cracks. It is pitch black, like a hard stone. This thing, surprisingly, is buried with 100 herbs in the soil. If you don't look carefully, you really can't find it. Who probably threw it here? Meng Fan smiled and did not pay too much attention, but instead focused all his attention on the 100 herbs. He carefully collected the 100 herbs, wrapped them with a piece of cloth, and placed them in his arms. Doing everything well, Meng Fan let go of his heart and sighed for his good luck. Excited, Meng Fan weighed the black bead in his hand and muttered softly, "Hee, this thing is quite heavy." As he spoke, he casually placed the bead in his arms. In his clothes, the blood on Meng Fan's chest touched the pitch-black beads, and a drop of blood merged into the black beads without Meng Fan's attention. Between the lightning and flint, a bright light suddenly flashed over the bead, dazzling and ready to break through the long sky of the night. Ah! Meng Fan let out a muffled snort, his mind suddenly heated up, and his whole body seemed to have a slight burning sensation. In the next moment, his body slowly collapsed and he fell into a deep sleep. Chapter 5. Amazing Beauty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Opening his heavy eyelids, Meng Fan's efforts looked around and found himself in a dense forest, with sunlight shining in. Obviously, this was above the Yanlang mountain. All of this is not a dream. Suddenly, Meng Fan made a carp stand up and roll over, and his palm quickly touched his chest. He found that inside, the 100 herbs and black beads were still in place and did not disappear. Fortunately, everything is here. Meng Fan grinned and didn't know what to do if the 100 herbs were lost. However, at the next moment, Meng Fan's body stiffened slightly, because he was surprised to find that besides blood stains, there was no more injury on his body now. You should know that last night, besides the injuries caused by Lei Tao, there were also scratches from going up the mountain, at least 3 inside and outside. However, now it has completely disappeared, and even the scars are gone. Suddenly, Meng Fan's eyebrows furrowed. Even if he had taken 100 herbs last night, he might not have such magical powers, let alone the 100 herbs safely in his pocket. Is it the problem with that black bead? Meng Fan's palm moved and took out the black bead, carefully examining it. But just like last night, the black bead was like a hard stone, but there was no noticeable difference. Damn it, if there's a ghost out there. Meng Fan scratched his head and in the next moment, his small face suddenly changed. He immediately put the bead and 100 herbs into his arms, because Meng Fan suddenly noticed that it was already dawn. With a deep curse, Meng Fan's figure quickly ran towards the foot of the mountain. In Wuzhen, once the day breaks, everyone will come out early to practice. If they don't manage to meet someone, it will be disastrous, and Meng Fan can't help but be nervous. Thinking of the strict clan rules, Meng Fan's figure couldn't help but run rapidly between the mountains like an ape. However, due to the absence of injuries during the day, Meng Fan no longer struggled as he did when he climbed the mountain last night. What surprised Meng Fan was that his body seemed to have become much lighter and faster. However, Meng Fan couldn't care so much and ran down the mountain at full speed. In half an hour, Meng Fan had already walked out of the Yanlang mountain, and his speed had increased by about twice compared to yesterday. Meng Fan's figure quickly crossed the stone tablet and carefully looked around, without noticing anyone else. This allowed Meng Fan to calm down, tidy up his clothes, and leisurely walk towards his home, as if nothing had happened. However, at this moment, Meng Fan was somewhat excited in his heart, not only because he had obtained 100 herbs, but also because of a strange event that had happened to him. The injury was completely healed overnight, which could be said to be infinite mystery. Perhaps it was related to that pearl. You should know that Meng Fan's memory only stayed in the moment when a ray of light was released. Of course, it could also be an illusion. Feeling comforted in his heart, Meng Fan walked towards home with some excitement, but suddenly his figure stopped and his small face looked ahead, with a hint of warmth in his eyes. Not far from Meng Fan, a beautiful figure slowly walked over, dressed in a plain white robe. At the age of 15 or 6, with green silk draped around his back, although he was not very old, his physical development was already very good, especially his pure appearance, delicate facial features, and a feeling of unbearable harm. Gu Xin'er. Meng Fan blurted out, but his tone had a special flavor. The youthful and charming Gu Xin'er in front of me is the daughter of Gu Yuan, the mayor of Wuzhen. She has a twin sister and they are both known as Wuzhen Shuanglian. Gu Xin'er has a gentle personality and a charming and approachable appearance. She can be said to be the woman that countless young people in Wuzhen dream of, including the irritable Lei Tao, who can speak softly in front of Xin'er. Among the many admirers of Xin'er, there is also Meng Fan. When he arrived in Wuzhen at the age of 5, Meng Fan played and grew up with Xin'er when he was young. But later on, as he grew older, especially after both sides began to cultivate their vitality together, Meng Fan became more aware of the gap between the two sides and realized that he was just a poor boy. And the other party was the daughter of the mayor, who also showed an extremely strong talent for spiritual cultivation. Therefore, later on, Meng Fan began to suppress his emotions, sealing off his world and immersing himself in cultivation, deliberately distancing himself from Xin'er. Sometimes even when Xin'er came to find Meng Fan deliberately avoided him, and over time, the contact between the two sides gradually decreased. But only Meng Fan knew that he had always had a faint liking for this neighbor who grew up with him. Standing in place, Meng Fan let out a gentle sigh and lowered his head as he walked forward, not intending to greet Xin'er, but preparing to quietly pass by. However, in the next moment, when I noticed Meng Fan's ancient heart, I heard a voice tinged with excitement. "Meng Fan, what a coincidence! You also came out to practice." As she spoke, a blooming smile had already appeared on Xin'er's cheek, like a blooming lotus flower. She walked slowly to Meng Fan and immediately felt a faint fragrance, which was both pleasant and not vulgar. It was a unique body fragrance of a young girl. This kind of smell still feels like when I was a child. Chapter 6. Xin'er's Remuneration. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Meng Fan clenched his fist slightly, knowing that he couldn't escape. He raised his head to meet Xin'er's eyes and said calmly, "Yes, Xin'er has also come out to practice. With such diligence, I don't know what realm he has reached." Upon hearing this, Xin'er blinked her eyes and whispered softly. "Brother Meng Fan, I have reached the level of refining my body to the 5th level. How about it? It's amazing. Refining level 5. Meng Fan nodded, but with a sigh in his heart, he couldn't believe that Xin'er had reached the 5th level of body cultivation. It should be noted that Xin'er usually doesn't enjoy practicing, but he works so hard. Thinking of this, Meng Fan's smile couldn't help but add a hint of bitterness, and he said lightly, "Amazing, my heart is a genius in cultivating vitality." Seeing Meng Fan's bitter smile, Xin'er's expression froze and she immediately reacted. She grabbed her clothes with her small hand and said softly, "Sorry, brother Meng Fan, It's okay." Meng Fan shook his head and wanted to reach out to touch Xin'er's hair as if he had done before. As he reached out his palm, Meng Fan forcibly suppressed it and calmly said, "The stronger my heart is, the happier I am. Don't forget, you and I grew up together since childhood." Upon hearing Meng Fan's words, Xin'er nodded and looked at him with her eyes fixed on him. Bei's teeth lightly bit her lips, as if she spoke with some bitterness. "But brother Meng Fan, it's been 2 years since he came to play with me." Meng Fan coughed lightly and quickly said, "I want to cultivate. I don't have such a good talent as my heart." Xin'er forced a smile and whispered, "Brother Meng Fan has praised me, and my heart also needs to be diligently cultivated. My father once said that natural talent and spiritual medicine are secondary, and the most important thing is to have a heart to learn from martial arts. In this regard, I still need to learn from brother Meng Fan and sister. Sister has left me behind a lot, and the race is about to start. I not only need to come out to cultivate, but also come out to collect green snakes." Race ratio. Hearing these 2 words immediately shook Meng Fan's whole body. In Xin'er's words, the so-called clan competition is an important annual competition in Wuzhen, and all the younger generation in Wuzhen will participate. This competition is definitely not light for Wuzhen. If you can enter the top 20, you will definitely receive considerable praise, and even rumors of being a 2nd grade or above elixir. By pinching his fingers, Meng Fan knew that there was only about a month left until the race was over. However, for Meng Fan, the top 20 was a bit too far away. With a bitter smile, Meng Fan hesitated for a moment and whispered softly. "Collecting the green snake, are you still practicing the technique your father gave you?" Gu Xin'er nodded and looked at the beautiful girl in front of her. Meng Fan's eyebrows furrowed slightly. Not many people know this secret, but Meng Fan, who played with Gu Lan since childhood, is one of them. The cultivation method practiced by Gu Xin'er is a fragmented Yuan Qigong method specially prepared by the town mayor Gu Yuan for Gu Xin'er. This Yuan Qigong method is not even complete, its origin is extremely mysterious, and its level is unknown. However, Gu Yuan has always insisted on Gu Xin'er practicing this method. Meng Fan couldn't figure out this mysterious technique, but since it was cultivated by Gu Yuan and Gu Xin'er, it must not be an ordinary skill. The requirements for cultivating this skill are extremely peculiar. The first condition is to have the magic core inside the warcraft to absorb its energy. Therefore, for these years, Gu Xin'er has been capturing the most basic first-order warcraft, the green snake. Scratching his head, Meng Fan suddenly asked. "Are you sure you can handle it?" Although the first-order warcraft green snake does not have much killing power, it is a considerable difficulty for Gu Xin'er because this girl has an extremely kind nature. Although it is not a problem to catch the green snake with her strength, sometimes she cannot bear to let it go. Therefore, when she was young, she relied on Meng Fan to catch the green snake she practiced. However, later on, Meng Fan was able to escape. Seeing Meng Fan's teasing, Gu Xin'er's pretty face turned red and she immediately said with a hint of resentment, "Well, even if it's not me, no one will help me." As the tone fell, there was an indescribable sense of complaint, which immediately made Meng Fan give a bitter smile. It seems that her deliberate estrangement has made Gu Xin'er resent her a lot. After pondering for a moment, Meng Fan gritted her teeth and said, "Forget it, in 10 days' time, it should be when the green snakes on the mountain are active and will come down continuously. Wait for me in this place, and I will help you catch some green snakes. How about that?" Upon hearing this, Gu Xin'er's eyes flickered with joy, and she quickly asked, "Really?" Meng Fan nodded and said lightly, "When did I ever deceive you?" "Humph." Gu Xin'er snorted and looked at Meng Fan with her eyes. She whispered, "All right, remember that you promised me then. Don't forget then." "All right, I'll pay you the salary first." "Salary?" Meng Fan gave a bitter smile and looked at Gu Xin'er helplessly, unsure of what kind of ghost this little girl was going to. However, with a movement of Gu Xin'er's white jade-like hand, she seemed to take it seriously and solemnly took out something from her arms, handing it to Meng Fan. It was a black scroll that was delivered to Meng Fan without saying a word. Immediately, Gu Xin'er's pretty face turned slightly red and she turned around to leave, leaving a beautiful shadow for Meng Fan. After running away, Gu Xin'er's lively voice came. "Brother Meng Fan, you have to work hard. I heard about your relationship with Lei Tao. That annoying guy is definitely not as good as Brother Meng Fan. I believe Brother Meng Fan will shine brightly in the race." Suddenly, Meng Fan's pupils shrank slightly, looking into the distance, shining brightly. Nowadays, perhaps only Gu Xin'er and her mother in the entire Wuzhen still hold hope for their mediocre qualifications. Shaking his head, Meng Fanxian immediately opened the scroll left by Gu Xin'er. After glancing at a line of small characters in the scroll, his whole body trembled, and a thick surprise appeared on his small face. Because on this scroll, it is clearly written, Middle Grade Yuanqi Martial Arts, Big Bang Hand. Chapter 7. Intermediate Martial Arts. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Middle Grade Martial Arts with Vitality. Just these few words alone are enough to make any young man in Wuzhen crazy about it. Although there are countless intermediate martial arts like this in the world, the most precious one in this remote and impoverished Wuzhen is the highest level of elemental energy martial arts practiced by Mayor Gu Yuan. And reaching the intermediate level, it has good power. Once cultivated successfully, it is enough to break stones and open mountains. Especially with this big hand collapse, Meng Fan has heard that it was the famous method used by the town mayor Gu Yuan. Once he reached the level of perfection, his powerful strength was enough to shatter a 3-meter thick stone slab. The preciousness of this thing is self-evident. I never expected that Gu Xin'er, this girl, could directly give it to herself. If Gu Yuan blamed it, even this little girl would have to follow suit. The fist clenched, and Meng Fan wanted to catch up and exchange the scroll for Gu Xin'er. However, thinking of the hopeful look in Gu Xin'er's eyes as she left, Meng Fan clenched his fist and his veins burst out. Since that's the case, it's better to cultivate first. In the future, it's best to find precious spiritual medicines to compensate your heart. Meng Fan sighed in his heart and made up his mind to put away the scroll and head straight towards his own home. At Meng Fan's home, Xian had already gone out to collect medicine in the early morning. Of course, what she collected was not spiritual medicine, but ordinary medicine for healing. In addition to being used by Meng Fan, she could also maintain some vitality in Wuzhen. For Meng Fan, who was not in the room, Xian just thought that he had gone out to practice early. After all, Meng Fan had been extremely diligent in cultivating his vitality for 3 years. Naturally, she didn't know that Meng Fan had not returned overnight, let alone that he had ventured into the forbidden area of Yanlang Mountain in Wuzhen last night. Taking a loophole and returning to the room, Meng Fan stuck out his tongue, secretly thinking that he was lucky. He immediately changed into a new outfit and put everything on his body. The harvest of this day was not small, and the safest place Meng Fan knew was none other than himself. Immediately, Meng Fan arrived directly on an empty piece of land not far from his home. This open space is also an ordinary martial arts training ground for Meng Fan, which is relatively quiet, and the surrounding scenery is good. 3 years are like a day, and Meng Fan's body suddenly moves on the open space. Stepping on the ground with the sole of his foot, Meng Fan made various difficult postures, which were basic movements to clear the body's meridians, allowing the body's vitality to flow smoothly through the body and stimulate the meridians. It may seem simple, but it is extremely physically demanding. 3 years passed like a day, and Meng Fan knew that the first step in cultivating vitality was to open up all the meridians in the body, allowing the vitality to blend in and pave the way for future achievements in utilizing it. Therefore, the requirements for the body were extremely crucial. For the past 3 years, Meng Fan has been diligently practicing every movement, sweat wetting his green shirt without realizing it. For a full day, Meng Fan spent all his time practicing his body, until the sun was about to set when he stopped practicing and walked wearily towards home. After a day of physical training, Meng Fan's body had already expended too much energy at this moment, but he did not cultivate the ancient heart and instead gave him the Big Bang hand. Although there is only one lower-level cultivation method, Meng Fan has realized that the higher the level of the Yuanqi cultivation method, the better it is for oneself. Before practicing higher-level cultivation methods, one must have a strong realm as support, otherwise forcibly practicing will only harm without benefit. And with this great collapse, Meng Fan estimated that he would only be able to practice when he reached at least the 3rd level of body cultivation, otherwise his body would inevitably be unable to bear it. Returning home, Meng Fan was somewhat heavy-headed and wanted to fall asleep in a daze, knowing that it was something that had consumed his body completely. If there were any supplements, perhaps it could weaken Meng Fan a bit, but if not, Meng Fan would have to endure physical pain for a period of time when he returned home. After all, refining one's body in a day consumes all the energy, while wealthy families consume precious delicacies and spiritual medicines from heaven and earth every day. At the same time, they can also use all of them in their cultivation and integrate them into their flesh and blood to quickly advance. In the room, Xian had already prepared the food and was waiting for Meng Fan to come back. Looking at the ordinary food and the white hair that had already grown on Xin'er's temples, Meng Fan's heart was sour. He knew how difficult it was for Xin'er to pull herself up in recent years. The beautiful woman who used to be a member of the Tianhan sect is now undoubtedly with the village girl. What are you looking at? It's time for dinner. Xin'er smiled and placed the rice chopsticks in front of Meng Fan. Nodding, Meng Fan's eyes flickered, and he reached into his arms. After touching the black bead and the 100 herbs, he hesitated for a moment, only took out the black bead and said softly. Mother, there's something I want to tell you. What? Xin'er put down the dishes and looked at Meng Fan with love. Knowing that a son is like a mother, Xin'er is already very satisfied with Meng Fan. Apart from being stubborn, her child has far surpassed many of her peers. Meng Fan handed the 100 herbs to Xin'er and said softly. Mother, this is for you. Chapter 8. The Greatest Gain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing Meng Fan open the cloth in the package, a tempting fragrance of medicine rushed towards her, causing Xin'er's expression to change. She covered her mouth and exclaimed in surprise. Ah, Bai Yao Chow, where did you get it from? A second-grade spiritual medicine naturally surprised the heart orchid who was responsible for it. Scratching his head, Meng Fanning said in a voice, when I was practicing outside today, I happened to see it from the mountain path and secretly picked it down. Upon hearing Meng Fan's answer, Xin'er looked at Meng Fan in confusion as she was gathering outside. A second-grade spiritual medicine is so precious. If it were outside, I don't know how many people would miss it, but Meng Fan unexpectedly stumbled upon it casually, which was a bit of luck. However, although she hesitated in her heart, Xin'er did not have much doubt. After all, Meng Fan had always been extremely obedient before, never doing anything out of line except for someone mentioning his father. After a moment of contemplation, Xin'er brought over the 100 herbs and whispered softly. This thing is too precious, but since you have it, I will make it into soup tomorrow and give it to you to drink. I'll forget it. You are a cultivator, and I believe you can also strive for more good results in the clan competition. Knowing that Xin'er, 100 herbs, would definitely not eat them for his own sake, Meng Fan sighed in his heart and remained silent. He couldn't wait until Xin'er boiled into soup and secretly poured it into Xin'er's water without drinking it. After eating, Meng Fan went straight to his room. After all, practicing for a day had consumed too much energy, and for Meng Fan, he just wanted to sleep. Lying on his own small bed, Meng Fan reached into his arms and took out the 2 remaining items in his hand. He carefully looked at the black beads in his hand, which were now just a hard stone like before, without any difference. But last night, it was clear that he had fully recovered from his injuries and regained all his physical strength. There must be some difference. Meng Fan's eyebrows furrowed slightly, and in the midst of contemplation, his gaze suddenly flickered. If he insisted on anything different, it was because there was blood on his chest yesterday that it was like this. With a bite of his teeth, Meng Fan bit his finger, and suddenly a little blood appeared on top of it. Meng Fan gently touched the black bead. However, to Meng Fan's disappointment, the black bead did not explode as brightly as it did last night. It was exactly the same as before. Dizzy, broken bead. Meng Fan muttered, his face a bit gloomy. He couldn't believe that the almost magical thing from last night had never happened again. His palm clenched tightly with anger, while the weak vitality in his body unconsciously flowed out. At the next moment, the faint vitality in Meng Fan's palm touched the black bead, and suddenly the black bead flashed. A warm force flowed out of the black bead and slowly entered Meng Fan's body. This thing is really strange, it needs to absorb the vitality in one's own body. In an instant, Meng Fan was greatly surprised, his palms slightly closed, and the remaining vitality in his body merged into the black bead. At the same time, strange energy also emanated from the black bead, giving Meng Fan's meridians a warm feeling. Sitting cross-legged, Meng Fan's body remained motionless. As the bright moonlight shone in, he could faintly notice a bright light emanating from Meng Fan's skin, shining brightly. For half an hour, Meng Fanfong finally opened his eyes, with a glint of brilliance in them. Because Meng Fan was surprised to find that all the exhaustion in his body had been swept away, and his body was once again filled with the power of vitality. Moreover, his meridians seemed to have expanded slightly, becoming even stronger. How could this be? What happened last night happened again. As his pupils contracted, Meng Fan stared blankly at the bead. Although he didn't know what it was, he had a vague premonition that his biggest gain from climbing the mountain yesterday was not 100 herbs, but this pitch-black ordinary bead. With an excited smile, Meng Fan didn't have so much to worry about. He put the bead back on his chest and immediately ran out of the room. On weekdays, Meng Fan was already exhausted and sleeping soundly on the small bed, but now it's time for him to recover his stamina, which is a good time for him to practice. In the open land, under the moonlight, there was already an extra figure, like an ape, with light movements. Sitting with various complex movements, sweat dripped down faintly, wetting the green shirt, but more was excited laughter. Chapter 9. Body Refining Level 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 10. Practice the Big Bang Hand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the scorching sun and scorching heat, on the open land, there is always Meng Fan's figure, who comes and goes like an ape. The first level of entry into the cultivation of vitality is the pinnacle of body cultivation. The body itself is even stronger than a stone, so it requires a lot of cultivation. Step by step, under the scorching sun, it is extremely uncomfortable, let alone continuous movements. Meng Fan stood firm, with his hands on his back and his body bent, jumping forward step by step. This physical exertion was immense, and sweat completely soaked his clothes. However, Meng Fan gritted his teeth tightly without realizing it. For 3 full days, Meng Fan remained in an open space, and even after returning home, he hastily left after only taking a bite of food. Xin'er only felt a secret pain in her heart for this, but she only believed that the race was approaching and Meng Fan was making sufficient efforts for him, and did not notice too many differences. During the 3-day period, Meng Fan almost spent all of his time in cultivation. Once his stamina depleted, he used black beads to replenish it and practiced again. For 3 full days, Meng Fan found that his body was becoming stronger day by day, and his meridians became wider and could accommodate more energy. This kind of cultivation time is twice as long as others, and there are black beads to warm up the meridians, which is enough to greatly improve Meng Fan's cultivation speed. Even the unattainable 4th level of body cultivation is not so far away from Meng Fan's eyes at this moment. It seems that I am already qualified. Sitting cross-legged on a large stone, Meng Fan was panting heavily, but a hint of excitement appeared on his small face. With a palm movement, there was already an extra object, which was clearly a mid-level elemental energy technique gifted by Xin'er to Meng Fan, causing a huge collapse in his hand. This great collapse of the hand is just a means of attacking the vitality, and it is impossible to cultivate the vitality according to personal attributes and change the changes in the body's vitality. However, in terms of power alone, it is extraordinary. Meng Fan chuckled lightly, thinking that he would only be eligible for this big blow in at least a month, but he didn't expect that there would be a chance now. Opening the scroll, Meng Fan carefully read every word. After a while, Meng Fan closed the scroll, but a hint of surprise appeared on his small face. This Big Bang hand is not so easy to cultivate. It concentrates the power inside the body and erupts from the arm in an instant. It has very high requirements for the cultivator himself and leaves behind a method for refining the body. Thinking of this method, Meng Fan couldn't help feeling a chill on his back. Helplessly shrugging his shoulders, Meng Fanxian stood up and walked home. In her own home, Xin'er had already prepared the food and added an extra item. The white bowl was like clear water, but it had an extremely pleasant medicinal fragrance, which was naturally a decoction made from 100 herbs. "Drink it, Fanner." Xin'er looked at Meng Fan and kindly said, completely ignoring her years of cold illness. Meng Fan had no choice but to cope with this. After taking it over, he took advantage of Xin'er's carelessness and replaced it, quietly putting it all into Xin'er's cup. This 100 herbs were originally collected for the heart orchid, and Meng Fan no longer had the same desire for the once coveted 100 herbs after learning about the effects of black beads. And Meng Fan had a feeling that his black beads had a warming and nourishing effect on the meridians, which was definitely not weaker than the second-grade spiritual medicine of Bai Yao Chao. Xin'er, who had no idea at all, did not react much after drinking water casually. However, Meng Fan had a clear feeling that Xin'er's complexion had improved significantly, with a hint of redness from her previous pallor, and her usual cough had completely disappeared. "It seems that all my efforts are worth it. Although my mother's cold illness is not good, it should be temporarily suppressed. As long as I find more precious spiritual medicines for her in the future, it should be able to completely cure Xin'er's cold illness." Meng Fan was secretly pleased in his heart. At night, he quietly prepared in his room and went to bed for the first time after everything was ready. Because Meng Fan knows the importance of balancing work and rest, and understands that tomorrow's cultivation will be even more cruel.